Greetings, I am the Lion Clan Chief. Welcome to the Lion Clan. Today's video will aim to contextualize what happened in a slave rebellion which took place in South Carolina in 1739. This slave rebellion was the Stono Rebellion. Now, in the Stono Rebellion, what happened was around 22 Angolan slaves, according to sources, escaped and stole firearms and caused havoc in the region, to which they were able to bolster their numbers to around 90, between 80 and 90 slaves, if not 100, according to some claim. Now, these slaves were led by a man called Jemmy Cato, who again was Angolan according to the sources. Now, what was happening at this time is the region of Florida, state of Florida, was under the Spanish rule. For most people who don't know that, so the Spanish had a colony in Florida, and they were offering slaves freedom if they could come there. So Jemmy Cato and many Angolan people at this time arrived in America as Catholic Christians with knowledge of Portuguese. They could read and write it. Now you're probably wondering how's that possible? African slaves arriving into the Americas already Christian. What? So in the Angolan region, you have to go back to the 15th century to see how this is possible. So the Kingdom of Congo, which was established likely a century before that, in the 1300s or 1200s, depending on the oral sources, came into contact with the Portuguese first in 1483. Now, this contact, strange enough, was not militaristic or commercial. It was religious. They came into contact, and for some reason they were obsessed with each other's religions and cultures. So with this, in the late 1400s, the king of Congo at the time, the Mane Nzinga, not Queen Nzinga, for those who are thinking of that way. So Mane Congo Nzinga sent ambassadors to the Portuguese for them to learn the Portuguese language, writing, and so on, and also to learn the Catholic religion, the basics of it. So this happened in that same year, 1483. So the first ambassadors from the Kongo Kingdom went into Portugal, to the Iberian Peninsula, and were introduced to the Catholic religion. They would come back 2 years later in 1485, and then the king again would command them to go back to acquire more knowledge and understanding of this religion and the culture and the politics of the Portuguese, to see what exactly their game was. They would again return back to the Kongo Kingdom in 1493 and were able to convert Mane Congo Nzinga into the Catholic religion in 1491. This is how the Catholic religion penetrated into the Bakongo elites. So this is where the tradition of Bakongo rulers taking on European names began. So this king took the name Joao I. I still find this very confusing. I don't know why they took those names, because they're not even in the Bible, but I digress. This is where it began. Anyway, one of the province leaders in what is called Soyo, Mwene Soyo, took the name Manuel. Again, that may be more biblical, but still, it's kind of weird still for me. Now, how they justified converting was the Congo religion and cosmology had symbols which looked like the Christian cross. So what happened was, when the king converted, and one of the courtiers, one of the nobles, found a stone with a cross on it which looked like these symbols right here, which are Bakongo symbols, and he was like, look, this is a sign, we're doing the right thing, you know what I mean? So what they did is they literally found common ground. They said, okay, you have crosses in your religion, we have crosses in our culture, or maybe it's meant to be. So they said, okay, it's pretty much the same thing. So they converted on their own terms. They still preserved their cosmology, cultures, and so on. It wasn't full-on conversion, like some people assume. So it was pretty smart, pretty funny as well. Like, oh, there's a rock with a cross. Is this from Jesus Christ? No, this is from your ancestors, my brother. No. So Mane Nzinga's successor, Mane Mvita, I believe that's how you pronounce his name, also known as Alfonso I, was the first king to make an institution where the nobles would be educated in the Portuguese language, the religion of Catholicism, and get that to spread. So with that, they learned how to write. There were schools, there were institutions in the capital city of Banzi, Congo, which became known as South Salvador later on, which I'll explain why exactly. Now, there were like 400 people educated who were nobles. After 4 years of education, they would spread into other provinces, making their own educational centers. To the point that later on, with the successes of this Congo, there were many dozens of schools in the capital city. In other provinces, you would find like up to 10 different schools where people were being educated in religion, the Portuguese language, and so on. So a lot of writing was taking place. They were writing Christian-related books, copying books, but also making records for transactions, contracts, tributes, and so on. So there is thousands, likely thousands of manuscripts that need to be found, because at the moment, I don't know why not much attention is given to what the Kongo Kingdom has. One of their neighbors, called Dembos, apparently they found over 1,000 manuscripts from that region alone, and it wasn't as what can I say? It wasn't as high prestige as the Kongo Kingdom. So who knows what they have in the Kongo Kingdom? There could be a whole Congo Chronicle, written accounts of history from the people at that time in the either 1500s, 1600s, and 1700s. We don't know, but I think they need to research this because it is very interesting. Now, at some point, the Bakongo got tired of the Portuguese. They still had patronage over the church of the Bakongo people, and they didn't like that. One of the kings, called Kongo Mini, also known as Avero II, would go on to send ambassadors where he requested that the Bakongo church needed to be established by itself instead of relying on the Portuguese for patronage and for control of their churchly duties and so on. Pope Clement VIII approved of this and made the Kongo Kingdom an Epistle See. So this means the Congo region would have its own bishop. It would be controlling its own church as well. In return, the Congo would transform the Kongo Kingdom into a fully Christian kingdom. Yeah, he only did that on paper though. so instead of having the native titles for nobles, courts, and so on, they ended up having dukes, courts, countiers, I think. The European titles, dukes, countiers, barons, I think, stuff like that. He ended up adapting those titles, but it was just I think it was just a front. They did it for business, and it pretty much worked. So this is why the capital city went from being called Mbanza, Congo, to being South Salvador, which is named after the church that was built in Congo, which is Church or Cathedral of the Holy Savior. So with this, the Bakongo had established themselves as a Christian nation in Africa, and were pretty much on good terms with the Vatican and other European states at this time. The Portuguese were trying to, they're trying to colonize, they're trying to cause some trouble later on, but they couldn't really do much until the Kongo Kingdom in the 1700s and 1600s started having some struggles, some civil wars and so on. So the Bakongo before this were pretty much dominating in the trade of ivory, the native cloth called Luango cloth, which was very prized by Europeans. As you can see here, this is what it looks like, and this is the type of products Europeans would make out of this cloth. So it was very high demand, and the Portuguese people would take this as payment, and unfortunately they were trading slaves as well. Now, when it comes to slavery, the Congo did not permit their own people to be enslaved. They didn't like that. So what they did is they were purchasing slaves from other kingdoms and would then use those people that they've purchased to sell across. Now, at the time, they never dominated the slave trade, unlike their other neighboring kingdoms, like the kingdom of Luango, like the kingdom of Ndongo, and Matamba, which is the kingdom of Queen Nzinga, which exported a lot of slaves, high numbers of slaves. So at some point, the slave routes changed and went north, and the Congo Kingdom slave trade went down. So they ended up stopping the slave trade and just focused on trading their goods, their manufactured goods, and also ivory, as well as, like I said, copper and other goods. But at some point, there was civil wars, there was decentralization in the kingdom, and it just went to hell. And many Bakongo people were then sold into slavery. Many Kongo Kingdom who were already Catholics and so on sold. So this, I believe, is how Jemmy Cato ended up in the Americas, along with other Angolans who were from the Kongo Kingdom. Now, with this, like I said, they were already educated, they had gun trading, they also knew how to read and write. Yeah, it caused a lot of trouble for the Americans. So because of this, Jemmy Cato was able to read and understand what the Spanish were offering. Like, hey, come over to us, we'll set you free. You're Catholic, we're Catholic, we're good. Yeah. Now, we don't know what happened after the rebellion was stopped, because the South Carolina militia at some point found them. They were dancing, playing drums and stuff, celebrating. They thought they were scot-free, but then the militia came through and then spread them out. So altogether, I believe 44 former slaves were killed, and the South Carolina British people who were living there, I think 20 got killed. But we don't know what happened to Jemmy Cato. He may have escaped further and made it, or he may have been killed there and then. We don't know. Maybe we can just put 2 and 2 together, who knows. But either way, this is a very interesting piece of history showing how African culture and history impacted some people in the Americas at that time period. This rebellion scared the crap out of the people so much that they put a lot of laws to make it more difficult for slaves to rebel. So reading was prohibited, writing was prohibited, them being able to spend time working on their own properties and stuff was prohibited, being freed by slave owners was prohibited in South Carolina, and so on. So though it's an interesting piece of history, it caused a lot of troubles for the people after this period, but it is very interesting what would happen. So I think personally, if they made like a documentary or a film out of this, again, it would be good. Like, why don't they do this? You can make a film on roots, but you can't make a film on actual historical events that happen, actual history that links historical Africa to the Americas. Because just so you know, Black American history doesn't begin with slavery. It just doesn't begin in America. They still have connections with African cultures that they derive from, and it's still there. You can still see it in these regions in the South, like Louisiana with the Gula people and so on. So I just found this very, very interesting. What do you guys think? Did Jemmy escape? I don't know. I hope he did. Like, if I was to make a film of this, I would make sure that he escapes. But going through there, trying to reach Florida from South Carolina with all those people chasing you, because after this they were chasing slaves, because some people did escape and they got chased, and they put strict laws for people who had escaped. So imagine the threat, everything around you is after you. I think that'll make a good story. That'll make a good TV show, make a good film. Yeah, why can't Hollywood do that, bro? Anyway, it's all good. Hollywood doesn't need to do anything. We'll do it ourselves one day. When we have the resources, we'll do it ourselves. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please like, subscribe, and comment. Give me feedback. Let me know what you think. And if you've learned something new today, just let me know as well. And I'm happy to educate you all. Anyway, thank you for watching. Yes, I am your chief.